Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Instinct. Quite a few interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, this case involves a woman named Ella being killed. She's a new wife, well, somewhat new wife, but, a stepmother. And it turns out this whole complicated thing because it all happened at her stepdaughter Alex's sweet 16, and obviously the immediate suspect is like Alex's ex-boyfriend Boyd, because it also turns out because everyone that's at the party, Alex's friends and stuff like that, kind of the younger crowd are kind of be like, oh, it's him. He's creepy. Alex had Ella kind of fire him from the job because he was creepy and pervy and whatnot. So everyone just kind of jumping on it. And because this being the social media age, it's like blasting on the internet. And he's kind of words getting around that he's the killer and stuff like that. Which you have Dylan kind of stepping in as old man, snatching people's phones. But then the one girl, Kim, she's like, actually, legally, you can't take our phone. She's kind of like the one that's not with the crowd, but at the same time, she's there to kind of be there at the same time because she's one of Alex's friends. They've actually been friends for a long time. It kept crossing my mind the entire time. I was like, why do I recognize that actress? It kept bothering me. The actress's name is Nadia Alexander. It bothered me enough I had to look it up. Interestingly enough, what I recognize her from is The Sinner. She played Cora's sister, not like obviously her younger sister, but like when she was kind of like a teenager. That was her. I was like, dude, which is interesting because Alex's mom, her actual mom, is played by Catherine Erb. I always feel like I'm probably saying her name wrong, but obviously she was in CSI, not CSI, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, and she was also in The Sinner season 1 because she played Harry's ex-wife. So it's like the connections there is like, wait, what? That's crazy. Once again, just me going on with my little tangent, making connections like that. It's always interesting to me. But I also love that, Dylan's interaction with the teenager, because obviously he's getting all nitpicky because it's a whole thing of like, oh my God, people pay, the social commentary of like how people pay too much attention to their phone and stuff like that. They don't kind of see the world around them and stuff like that. And you have Lizzie being like, are you done with your rant? And he's like, yes, I'm done. I also love that there's actually an interesting conversation that comes up during one of his classes. It's basically kind of a social commentary on the fact of the matter is status isn't what we label ourselves. It's actually in the minds of other people. We can't actually control how people view us and what groups they lump us in. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting conversation. And then followed by the fact is that there's a viral video of Dylan, kind of like a songy kind of meme-ish video about Dylan. I thought was kind of interesting. And I love the fact that he's been like, wow, it's like 40,000 views. Is that a lot? Which is like, yeah, that's pretty good for your first viral video, which is pretty dope. Obviously, he's like, he's worried about it. It's like, my infamy and stuff like that. I even love it later on. He's like, it's almost 200,000 views. Like, how much do what's like the most another video's got? It's like, maybe like 5.5 billion or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're almost there, Dylan. But I love that being a thing, like that being a background thing. And he was even worried that it might affect his adoption situation because, all this case is going on. They're trying to, obviously last episode set up the whole like, hey, Sam, the whole situation of adopting from her. And it's like, you have Dylan kind of worried about it. Andy's pretty chill, but because Dylan is the way he is, he's kind of got his OCD. It's actually kind of sweet when he explains it and why he's the way he is. Because of his particular childhood, and his case kind of, stirs up some of that stuff. It's because of who he was as a kid, he never really fit in. And so he's trying to be like, no, I'm trying to focus, get all the details right, because he wants to, fit into this kind of, sort of fit into a group. Kind of the whole conversation, the status can come back on him in this regard because he wants people to look at him in a certain way, and he's afraid that if people look at him this way, like, maybe she'll think like, he's not a good parent. There's no way, So I just thought that was kind of like a fascinating thing. Like I said, it's actually kind of a sweet yet kind of sad reason why he was kind of as OCD about the whole situation, just because he wants the child to kind of end up a little better than him. But it's like, yeah, you're an adult now. It's like kind of, you don't have to worry about, not being picked or feeling like you don't fit in. You're an adult now. That's kind of all in your past. And, besides, he found his own place to fit in. He's got Andy. He's got, Lizzie and the team, so it's not like he's alone like he was before, So I just thought that was kind of sweet. But getting into the case, obviously the case takes them pointing in different directions because obviously like Ella fell, but it's like maybe there's something more. Maybe she was poisoned. I love that their Emmy, he's got this dry sense of humor and he's just so sarcastic. And it's just kind of like, Dylan's doing his behavioral thing to do. It's like, come here with like basically go do, if you believe that so and so it's something happening, it's like go do some more sleuthing. And the fact of the matter is, like, saying like you're making all these like personality aspects, diagnosis, behavioral analysis, but bring me like actual evidence and stuff like that to kind of go with the case and stuff like that. And just like, I forgot what it was. He said something snippy, and then you have Dylan kind of like glaring at him for it. I'm like, he's got that humor, just like him, so snippy. I love it. And because he's got such a dry delivery of it too, it makes it so good. All right, because I was like, yeah, does she have any needle marks? And Dylan kind of looks at him. He's like, no. And then he looks at her. He's like, I checked. It's like, come on, dude. I know what I'm doing. But nevertheless. But then it kind of points to different people. It might point to Kim because Kim made a gif about Ella, about her being dead and stuff like that. But it turns out the reason why she was doing that was because obviously there was a little disconnect between her and Alex. They're not the type friends that they were before, because now she's got new friends, and obviously Kim wants to try and fit in with that new crowd. Kind of got a little taste of that even earlier in the episode. And so, but for her, it's like, I didn't have any issue with Ella. I just did that just obviously me and Alex could, potentially get close again. Obviously her friends, the whole situation of them kind of, as her dad puts it, kind of gatekeeping. It's like, saying that, Alex isn't up for talking to people right now. It's so interesting because she seemed like she was so against Ella, but actually later on she kind of breaks down. She's like, honestly, I feel bad because I never took the chance to actually say, actually, she's pretty dope. Because Alex, the way they bonded and stuff like that. Ella threw her this great party and stuff like that. So she was a lot of fun to be around. But because the whole thing of like, because her friends were like, oh yeah, it's kind of so in, like, stepmothers have been hated by their stepchildren, like, it's just since the beginning of time and stuff like that. Because her friends kind of have that motive, and it's just kind of like, that's kind of the group they're in, that's how they think. She kind of wanted to fit in with her friends, so she kind of thought that same way too. But truth be told, she didn't feel that same way. It did kind of seem like she was kind of treating her stepmom like not right, just because she was like, oh yeah, like, you need to, go fire this dude for me, So, I think she actually went to her dad first, but then her stepmom decided to handle it. But still, it was just, and it kind of showed you that her stepmom was kind of willing to do whatever for her, because she did love her, so. But then what we end up finding out, because Dylan kind of breaks the whole situation, he's like, you know what? Kim wouldn't have any motive. Like, yeah, what would getting, Alex back as a friend, how would Ella kind of fit into that? We have to look at it from the other side. Who would, who is Ella leaving behind rather than Alex leaving behind? So it turns out, we met Molly earlier in the episode. Turns out that they were working on a big project together, but Ella married into this wealthier family, and so she's moving on up and kind of left her behind. And that's Molly. Molly wasn't trying to kill her. That was a big point that the case kind of brought up immediately, that this was meant to be kind of like a trick. At first, that's why they were thinking it was the teens. They were just trying to mess with her and embarrass her. Well, the same thing kind of applies. Molly just wanted to take her down a peg or two, because it's like, she's living this fantasy of like living this high life and stuff like that, kind of being like, she only got here because of marriage and stuff like that. It's like, we were a package deal, we were friends, and she, she felt like she was being left behind, kind of stabbed in the back by her friend. So she actually used a poison apple, and that was kind of interesting, because the entire motif of this kind of deals with kind of the whole a little bit of the Sleeping Beauty thing, because of the whole poison apple aspect to it, but it's also a little bit of a Cinderella element. Like, there's obviously like a fairy tale kind of metaphor to the whole episode and whatnot, but also like obviously everything with the Sleeping Beauty case, which I'll get to soon enough. Well, I'll go ahead and jump to it. Once again, and like, it's so interesting to kind of see like this overarching case be like the background thing. Like, I feel like the only overarching thing from season 1 was maybe the Charlie situation. That was it, but it wasn't even like an every episode thing. It was like every couple episodes. This has kind of been a consistent, like, no, this is always working in the background, because it's such a big thing chasing down this one particular serial killer. So I thought that was fascinating, because Dylan goes with Ryan to investigate, meet up with the person who might be a witness to it, but it turns out that witness got killed by the Sleeping Beauty killer, and it turns out that killer was actually watching him. So he's actually seeing who's investigating, and he's turning this into a game because there wasn't even a body there; it was just a photo of the body, and so it's turned into a game. And Dylan's suggesting like the killer's really starting to like it. So there's that element to it, which is definitely going to be. That means the case is heating up more and more. It's probably going to start becoming more and more of a focus, especially now, at least here, because obviously there was one victim from before, but now it's like 2 victims are here in New York. The killer's escalating, so it's definitely going to be interesting. Might even be targeting one of the cops next just to kind of get the flare of it, but we'll kind of have to wait and see on that. But some other moments in this episode I enjoyed. I love the fact is that Lizzie got, promoted to 2nd grade detective. I love everyone was quiet to her at first, and she's like, she's trying to talk to everyone. She's like, I'm literally saying words, or people not hearing me. I'm like, what are they doing? What are they doing? Are they messing with her? She goes and looks. There's nothing on her desk. She's like, my stuff is gone. She opens her desk. It's like, bam, surprise. Everyone's celebrating the fact is that she made it 2nd grade. I also love the moment I noticed it, and it kind of plays a part in the episode. Jasmine takes a look at the sparks kind of flying between Lizzie and Jules. Luckily, she didn't catch on to more than what she saw, but we'll get to that soon enough. But I love it's like, oh, she gets a new space, and I love what you're being like, yo, that's where I sleep, or that's where I do my work. Yeah. Also, them constantly playing the video in the office. It's actually kind of sad, too, like the whole situation with Lizzie, where Lizzie was like, she was actually in her office, her new office and everything, and she's looking outside, everyone's having fun, gathered around. She's ready to open the door, but by the time she gets out there, everyone's already kind of dispersed, and she kind of missed out on the fun. She kind of feels a little lonely and disconnected from the group. She doesn't feel like it's part of the, part of the group as much anymore, which once again kind of commentary on what Dylan was focusing on this episode. It's just interesting how that intersects like that. I mean, I'm sure it happens a lot more in episodes, but I feel like it's just the most apparent in this one. But nevertheless, I just thought that was kind of neat. Even Jasmine's like, oh, Jules is stopping by. I'll leave you 2 alone. And it's like, yeah, she thinks there's sparks between us. Lizzie is like, no, you need to open the door before other people start thinking. I guess because Lizzie's like, I want our thing to kind of be between us. If it becomes like a public thing, and it becomes more of an issue. I mean, if you became a public thing, it's like, well, that make it a little easier. You won't have to really necessarily sneak around, especially if Jasmine's under the impression like, oh, because she even asked, it's like, are you single? He's like, no. And the fact of the matter is, also like, what is his experience? Like, has he ever worked at another precinct before? It's got to be weird working with cops and stuff like that. He's like, no, I've watched the Police Academy movie, so that's his experience with cops and stuff like that. But I just thought that was just kind of neat. There's a little interesting moment between Lizzie and Julian, where he's like, oh, I gotta go for her. And she's like, kind of where? He's like, and keeping it vague as ever, outside of New York. It's like, there's a lot outside of New York, but okay, sure, keep it vague. And he's like, I promise I'll come back in time for your part. She's like, no, just come back safe. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. But I also love, what was one of my other favorite lines, right? Dylan's kind of congratulating her on her whole situation with being 2nd grade now. And he's like, I'd hug you right now, but I know you're super against PDA. And she's like, I'm not against PDA as long as it's not too public and it's not too affectionate. And he's like, he's like smiling, but congratulations, Lizzie. And she smiles and everything. She's like, I couldn't have done it without you. She's like, took the words right out of my mouth. I'm like, I love that he just has to still kind of take credit like that. But I love that when it's all said and done, Lizzie's like, you know what? She moves out the office and she actually gives her new office to Ryan, because for her it's like, no, I want to be a part of you guys. This is my home. And the fact of the matter is, if any of you call me 2nd grade again, we're gonna have a problem. Because every time they'd be like, detective 2nd grade, and everyone would salute to her. It's just kind of a joke. Them drinking at the bar is so sweet. It turns out even Harris making a move against Jasmine is like, well, no, you're single and stuff like that. And it's like, what? Harris? And she's like, okay, luckily we're drinking because we'll probably end up forgetting this tomorrow. And you have Lizzie being like, I sure won't. I love that. I was like, yo, taking your shot, huh? Okay, that's interesting. But just it's nice to see everyone gather around, cracking jokes like that. Sadly, Lizzie, even Jasmine was like, yeah, I was kind of hoping Jules would show up too. And I think, obviously Lizzie was kind of hoping too, because at the very least it would make you think like, hey, he's okay. Obviously, I'm assuming whatever work he's doing is connected to finding out. He's probably tracking down the person who came after him. I'm assuming that's also another side, because that's another thing he's doing while he's working as Jules. I'm sure it was kind of using to probably the NYPD system to probably kind of help search for that. Because like I said, it's interesting. That's probably like a super background thing that he's been working on secretly in the background. We just didn't know about it. But it's like we have not seen hide nor hair of that storyline since episode 1 of this season, whatever the case may be. I mean, which is weird to say considering we're only like 4 episodes into the season, but still, it's been a little while. So I'm curious to see. I'm assuming like if he's walking. I mean, it might be other jobs. I mean, we don't actually see any of the other stuff that Julian worked on. Even looking back on season 1, we never actually saw what he was working on. It's just kind of like, oh, he's doing this and that. He might be exercising. He might be in like his setup, in front of his computer, but we never actually saw what he was working on. So. Obviously, everything he's doing right now is probably on his personal time, like I said. So I'm very interested to honestly see where all this ends up taking us going forward, especially with this Sleeping Beauty case, where it's going to ultimately take us, who the killer is going to be. I doubt it's obviously going to be anyone we know, but it's going to be interesting to see them kind of unravel this case bit by bit. But I think there's going to be a lot more casualties before they end up catching the guys, the guy. So we got a glimpse of him from behind, so there's a good chance he might not ever be too far away from any particular crime. So he might be one of those killers who enjoys like watching from afar. But like I said, the police do their work from afar. But like I said, we'll have to ultimately wait and see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.